What's up, guys? It's All About Mike 18 here with another movie review. Guys, I just saw The Amazing Spider-Man today, July 5th. For me personally, this was my second most highly anticipated movie of the year, obviously behind the Avengers. Ever since I heard there was going to be an Amazing Spider-Man coming out, I couldn't wait to go see this movie because I've always been a big fan of Spider-Man. I loved the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Even though this was going to be a reboot, I was like, you know what, I have to go see this movie anyway. It's a Spider-Man movie. I was always a big Spider-Man fan, especially when I was a kid. But anyway, guys, finally, here it is, my movie review of The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, I will do my best not to include that many spoilers in this review, guys, but I think I just have to include one, but before I say it, I will say spoiler warning, and then I'll give the spoiler, so anyone who didn't see this movie yet, you don't have to watch that part of the video. But anyway, guys, I just have two things I want to say before I actually start this review. I really had a few concerns about this movie before I went to go see it. One thing I was really nervous about I was nervous about two things, actually. Was Andrew Garfield going to play good Peter Parker? Was he going to be equal to Tobey Maguire's portrayal of Peter Parker in the first three Spider-Mans, or was he going to be even better? And I was kind of nervous for Andrew Garfield because I didn't think he was going to do a good job. I thought he was going to be okay, not that great. And I really liked him in The Social Network. I didn't want to see people, hate the actor just for a role that he didn't do as good as Tobey Maguire did. So I was kind of nervous about that, and I was also nervous about the fact that I wanted to know if this was going to be a better Spider-Man than the first three Sam Raimi Spider-Man. So I was really concerned about those two factors because I love the first three Sam Raimi Spider-Mans. I watched the first Spider-Man was the first movie I've ever seen in my entire life. I saw it when I was a little kid, so I grew up with Spider-Man. I watched the cartoons and everything. I've never read the comics, obviously, but I was always a big Spider-Man fan, so that's why I was really kind of nervous about this movie. But anyway, guys, I'm going to get right into it. Here's my movie review of The Amazing Spider-Man. First thing I want to talk about is the story of this movie. I thought the story was really, really good. But anyway, it's kind of the same story as the first one, how Peter Parker gets his powers. He gets bitten by the spider. He loses his Uncle Ben. You guys should know that pretty much already. And that's pretty much the same first Sam Raimi movie, but it is a little bit different. They did make some changes to it. I will admit that. Anyway, you have high school Peter Parker, lives with Aunt May and Uncle Ben. He is bullied by Flash Thompson. He's starting to fall in love with Gwen Stacy. And what he wants to learn more about his father's past. His father and his mother left his aunt and uncle in charge of Peter when he was just a little kid. They just left him and ended up dying in a plane crash. So we finally got to see his parents in this, which is something I was really happy about. I was glad to finally see his parents. We never saw them in the first three Spider-Mans. So I was glad to finally see his parents in this and get a background story about his parents, just a little bit. They really didn't talk too much about his parents. Like, they showed them in the beginning, but we still have no clue what really happened to them besides the fact that they died in a plane crash. I mean, I want to know more about his parents, but they'll probably talk about that in the sequel. Anyway, guys, so Peter wants to learn more about his father. So he meets Dr. Kirk Connors the day he goes to meet Dr. Kirk Connors. He gets bitten by the spider. He begins to get some of Spider-Man's powers. He begins to be able to climb on walls. His hands begin to stick to stuff. He begins to he gets a Spidey sense. How could I forget? He gets a Spidey sense. So he slowly becomes Spider-Man. He begins to fall in love with Gwen Stacy. He begins to the police in New York begin to look at Spider-Man as a bit of a vigilante. And the head of the police captain, Captain Stacy, Gwen's father, is sending out like a cert. They want to get Spider-Man, and also you have Dr. Connors is slowly becoming the Lizard over time in the movie. So that's basically the plot of The Amazing Spider-Man. I thought it was really good. I had a few problems with it. A few problems that were mostly related to the comparison of this with the first three Spider-Man films, because I have to compare them a little bit in this review. But anyway, guys, the next thing I want to talk about is the cast. assess the characters in this movie. Now, here's the big question, and here's the answer that most of you have probably been waiting for. Was Andrew Garfield good as Peter Parker? Well, here's my personal answer, guys. I thought Andrew Garfield was really good as Peter Parker. I really enjoyed his role as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield was great. I had doubts that he was going to be as good, but he really was good. I liked how Peter Parker was a nerd in the beginning of the movie. He really was. And then he slowly becomes Spider-Man, the funny kind of Spider-Man. And I did think that Spider-Man was a little bit too funny in a few scenes. Like, he made too many jokes, while Tobey Maguire didn't in the other Spider-Man movies. He didn't make that many, he wasn't that funny. But overall, Spider-Man was I really liked Andrew Garfield's role as Spider-Man. He was really funny. He did do a good job. Was he as good as Tobey Maguire? In my opinion, guys, no. I don't think that he was as good as Tobey Maguire. I still think Tobey Maguire was a little bit better than Andrew Garfield. I just still don't think that anyone can play better Spider-Man than Tobey Maguire did. But Andrew Garfield did do a good job. I will give him that. Also, you have Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. Now, Emma Stone was really good as Gwen Stacy, and besides the fact that she's absolutely ridiculously hot, she was good in this movie as Gwen Stacy. I loved the relationship that was going on between her and Peter. I thought Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield really did a good job together as, a couple in the movie. I really liked Emma Stone in this movie as Gwen Stacy. You also had Rhys Ifans. I hope I'm saying his name right. He played Dr. Connors, also known as the Lizard. And I was waiting so badly. I couldn't wait for the Lizard to come in this movie. I wanted to see him in Spider-Man 3. Obviously he wasn't in Spider-Man 3. And I finally saw him in this. I thought he was great in this movie. And Rhys Ifans played he was a good Dr. Connors. It really was. I enjoyed him as Dr. Connors. You also had Dennis Leary. I almost forgot about him. Dennis Leary played Captain Stacy. It seemed the trailer, I was like, oh, Dennis Leary is going to be one of those guys that I'm just really not going to like. Like, he's just going to be that annoying character in the movie. But I actually really liked Dennis Leary in this movie as Captain Stacy. I thought he was really cool. I thought he did play a good role. I liked his role as Captain Stacy. You also had Martin Sheen as Uncle Ben. Now, Cliff Robertson, I think, is the best Uncle Ben. Martin Sheen was not better than Cliff Robertson in the Sam Raimi movies, but Martin Sheen was okay. He was a little funny in a few scenes, but he was probably, I don't know, he was okay. He wasn't the best, but he was alright. He did have a few funny parts, but he was alright. Overall, he was okay. Generally okay. Then you also had Sally Field, who was Mrs. Gump in Forrest Gump. She played Aunt May, and I still think Rosemary Harris was the best Aunt May. She was okay, though. She was surprised that she was in the movie a lot more than I thought she was going to be, but she was okay. She was good as Aunt May. But there you have it, guys. The cast was very good for The Amazing Spider-Man. Now, the next thing I really want to talk about in this review is probably the action in this movie. This movie had some really good action. And comparing this to the first Spider-Man, this had 10 times more action than the first Spider-Man. I really like some of the fight scenes in this. I do have one complaint about the action. There were like 2 scenes where Spider-Man and Lizard would be seen on camera, and I thought they were going to have some really cool fight scenes in those 2 scenes, but they didn't. They really didn't fight that much. Like, they were very kind of quick, and I wanted more. I wanted like a fight between the 2 of them in those 2 scenes. I mean, they did have some other good fight scenes, but that's just a minor little complaint. Overall, the action, this was really good. The visual effects were really, really nice. I loved the visual effects. The Lizard looked really, really good. Just the visual effects on that, the special effects, that was really, really good. I really thought that that scene where Peter's falling off the building, that was really nice. In the end of the movie, I really enjoyed some of the scenes in this movie in terms of the action. The setting in this movie was great, set in New York City. I love movies set in New York City. I love when Peter's shooting webs and he's flying around and he's you see all the buildings and they're all lit up. I love that kind of setting. The next thing I want to talk about is the rating of this movie. This is rated PG-13. I still think parents, kids can go see this movie. There was really nothing bad about this movie at all. A few character will die. Actually, I should say about a few characters will die. I really don't want to give that away, which could be a little upsetting for some kids. But kids can go see this movie. It's fine. And then now is come for the time to give my rating of The Amazing Spider-Man, guys. I will talk about the humor after I give my rating of the movie. I still have to talk about that. But here it is, guys. My rating for The Amazing Spider-Man is, excuse me, a 9 out of 10. I give The Amazing Spider-Man a 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed The Amazing Spider-Man. This was a great summer movie. That's why a lot of people are going to like this movie, because it was a great summer movie. Now I have to give my complaints for this movie. I have a few complaints. A few will be comparing this to the original Spider-Man. Complaint number 1. In a few of the scenes when Peter is getting used to his powers and he's starting to stick to stuff, and they were really funny, but I thought that the humor was a little bit too much in some of those scenes. I thought that some scenes were funny, but I was like, you know what, they really don't need to be that funny. I thought that they could have been a little bit more serious, like when he was getting his powers. I thought there was a little bit too much humor in some of the movie, but there were some really funny parts in this movie. I'm going to be honest. Stan Lee's cameo is another thing this was probably the funniest part of the movie. You see Stan Lee, his cameo. I don't want to give it away. I want you guys to be surprised about his cameo. That was a really funny part. There were some other funny parts. Michael Sheen did have a few funny lines, I guess you could say that. Their humor was very good in this movie, but I still think that it could have died down a little bit in a few scenes. That was one little complaint I had. Another complaint that I had about the movie was, you guys all know how Spider-Man's using web shooters in this movie. He's not, shooting webs, without the use of web shooters like he did in the Sam Raimi movies. He just could, point and shoot. He didn't need web shooters. In this, Peter Parker has to make web shooters. He makes his own costume, which I did enjoy those scenes, but I like the idea of him being able to shoot webs without web shooters. I like him shooting webs, just where he makes this little, there you go, he makes a little sign with his hands, and then he just shoots the webs like that. I wasn't a big fan of the web shooters. They were cool in this movie, but I was always attached to the idea of him just shooting webs, without the use of web shooters in the Sam Raimi movies. That's another complaint I had. This is probably my last complaint. My biggest complaint in this movie was, and this is the spoiler, guys. Spoiler warning right here. Uncle Ben's death. Now, most of you guys know that Uncle Ben has to die. He died in the comics. I'm sure he died in the comics. He died in Spider-Man 1, so he has to die in The Amazing Spider-Man. He did die in this, but I did not like that scene at all. That was my least favorite scene in the movie. I didn't like how they did it at all. I don't like what led to his death, how Peter ran into that guy in that deli. This is the spoiler, guys. I already gave the warning. I just didn't like how that happened. I think they could have really written that better. And then his death scene just wasn't that emotional for me. I really just didn't get that sad at all. There was actually another character that that died in this movie. I'm not going to say who it is. I thought that was more emotional than Ben Parker's death scene. The death scene of Ben Parker in the first Spider-Man was really, really emotional. It was just really powerful for me. In this movie, no, it wasn't that powerful. I didn't like that scene. That was probably my biggest complaint of The Amazing Spider-Man. If I had to just go and single out that one scene, that was probably my least favorite scene in the movie. And I'm pretty sure maybe a few other people have some similar feelings towards that scene like I did. But that was probably my least favorite scene. Anyway, guys, those are my biggest complaints of this movie. I thought that the plot was really good. The story, it was all great. The characters were great. Andrew Garfield was really good as Peter Parker, as Spider-Man. All the actors were great. They really played good roles in this movie. I thought that there was a lot of good humor, but I thought they could have toned it down a little bit in a few scenes. The action, the visual effects were all great. The setting in this movie was great. I thought The Amazing Spider-Man, great time, guys. It deserves a 9 out of 10. I highly recommend you guys see it. But when it comes down to, is this better than the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies? In a way, guys, no, I still love those better. Like I said, I grew up with those. I grew up with Tobey Maguire playing Spider-Man. So that's why I love those a little bit more than The Amazing Spider-Man. But guys, The Amazing Spider-Man was great. Like I said, 9 out of 10. Great summer movie. Highly recommend you go see it. I mean, a lot of people are going to go see it. How can you not see this? It's another Spider-Man movie. There is two things I do have to mention before I end this review. One, do not leave right when the credits start to roll. There is a post-credit scene that I'm trying to figure out who was in that post-credit scene still. I have a few theories I'm working on, but overall, you have to stay for that post-credit scene. That was a great post-credit scene. I really enjoyed it. It tells you that there's going to be a sequel. Definitely tells you that. I don't know if I'm going to see this movie in 3D, guys. Originally I said, oh yeah, I'm going to go see Amazing Spider-Man again in 3D. It's still up in the air for me right now, but as of right now, probably not. I'm still thinking about it, and I will buy this definitely on Blu-ray. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed my movie review of The Amazing Spider-Man. Overall, this was a really good movie. However, I still like the Sam Raimi movies a little bit more. I like Tobey Maguire a little bit better than Andrew Garfield, but overall, Andrew Garfield was really good in this movie. He was. I will give that to the cast and everything. This movie was a really good movie. Guys, I do recommend it. Stay tuned, guys. I will be releasing a few more videos. Sorry for this long review. And I hope you enjoyed, guys. Bye.